Can I start? Okay. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Jorge Mira. I am Customer Success Specialist for Cross-Domain Automation here in Cisco. And today, I want to dive you into the world of NSO Web UI. Okay? Here, you have a QR code on the screen with everything that I cannot cover from the scratch. So, for example, if you want to build your services, templates, device groups, I cannot show you from the scratch today, but you have here a step-by-step workbook where you will find that instructions, okay? So I will put the slide in the end again, so if anyone didn't have the chance to scan it, I'll bring it back again. So let's start from the beginning. Web UI of NSO. Once we arrive, we have this beautiful screen, which starts on the port 8080 by default. You can change it in the ncs.conf file. I can show it after. And I will log in with just the default username and password, which is admin. Once we arrive, we get into this beautiful screen. And we have the commit manager, configuration editor, device manager, service manager, and package upgrade, so as the main components. And then on the monitoring side, we have here Alarm Manager to check our alarms, dashboard, high availability cluster, and we have a new module, Insights Manager in the NSO 6. Customers were asking a lot about more features to keep the monitoring of NSO via the Web UI, so the developers really made the effort to get it ready. So it's still on the first version. It may evolve. So you have here the time that your transactions take, how many devices you have, how many sync froms you have done, what is the space that you are using on this with the CDB in the disk, in the RAM. So monitoring data. You can come back to the previous screen by just clicking on the Cisco logo, okay? Or you can use this bottom bar and you can navigate to the menus. And I'm going to the first one, the device manager, where you see that I have here 8 devices, okay? And we can see the name, the address, the port, the NAT, which I will go into it in a minute. And you can just try to connect to it and see what is the result. In this case, we have a red sign, so it means something did not work. What did not work? So we click on this small arrow, and we have the message, okay? In this case, it says refuse to connect, so there is a connection issue with the device. And in this case, I know it's a NetSIM, and I know it's not started, so let me start it. So NetSIMs and NETs, two concepts. So NETs, they are like this computer and this mouse. So you can only access these mouse functions because there is a driver in the computer, right? That allows you to scroll, to move the mouse. In NSO, we took the same approach. We have NSO and the devices, and then we have built the NETs, which are like the drivers that teach NSO how to connect and how to manage the device commands. Because without NETs, NSO cannot do anything in any device, okay? So for every device type, you will need a NET. And then we have these NetSIMs. So inside the NETs, we have this NetSIM capability, which allow you to simulate devices for you to play with. So let me show you. In this NetSIM, if I do NetSIM list, I can see all the ports that I connect for these devices. For example, NetConf, SNMP, IPC, or CLI, which is like is also known as SSH. So let me try to connect to one of it. So I do SSH, admin, localhost, and the port I will use here the 10026. I'll put the password of the user, and I'm connected to the device. This is a simulated device. You will see that, for example, you can do some show commands, not all, but all the configuration commands, they will work. We see that the configuration is empty for now, so I'll just try to make some configuration. So for example, interface loopback, 1, IPv4. You see that even if we tab, we get the autocomplete. Address 1.1.1, 255.255.255.255. And I do the commit, okay? So I just did one configuration in this simulated device just to show that we can configure. So now, if I go back to NSO, I should be able to connect to these devices because they are all started. Green is good, so it seems that you are ready to connect and to work with the device. But now you tell me, okay, but I have a lot of devices. I don't want to be clicking device by device just to check the connectivity. Can it be done for all the devices? Yes. So you have this small button like web forms. So we just select all the devices, and then we have this running person where we can trigger the actions. So if I do execute for the connection, it will just connect to all the devices. And I can do the same for check sync. And it will check if the configuration between the device config and what you have stored in the CDB is the same. In this case, it's not, because we did a configuration outside of NSO. So if we see the message by clicking on the small arrow, we can see that we got an out of sync, and we have two different hashes that were returned. And if we want to see what is the difference, we click in Compare Config, and we get just the small part of the configuration that is different between the device and what you have stored in the CDB. And now you have two options. You can do a sync from or sync to. If you do a sync to, it will be like a rollback, and you will delete this configuration that was done via SSH. I will do a sync from, so we can play with it in the web UI. So in the sync from, we will push this configuration. So this means that in the device, I should be able to see the interface that we have created. So when we go into the device, we already see some differences between NSO 6 and NSO 5. In NSO 6, we now have these bars on the top, so we don't. In the NSO 5, we had like full configuration just deployed there. So now we can just go to the specific configuration that we want. So I want to go to the config, interface, and we can see the loopback that we have created. So now, how do we change the configurations? I just want to make a simple change, like IP address. This is like a web form. So I just come here, I change the IP, and it's done, or partially done. You can see that there is here a green bar, here where my mouse is. This means that we have like a candidate configuration, okay? So nothing is deployed to the device, and I can prove it. So if I come here, I do show run, you see that we still have the old IP. So you can do as many configuration changes you want before deploying into the device. For example, I will put here a description from web UI, and you see I keep collecting these green bars. I can do as many changes as I want. Once I'm ready, I go to the commit manager, and I can see here the changes that will be deployed. So I will know what will be replaced in the device with what we configured. So we can see that we have the new IP, a description, and if we click on the native config, we can even see what are the device commands that can be deployed. So if I do the commit, I see that the transaction is successful and a rollback was created. So if I come here to the device, we can see that now the changes were deployed, only after I hit the commit button, okay? So what if I want to just roll back these changes? How do? We go back to the web UI, because we are doing everything via web UI today, and we stay in the commit manager, and we have a button named load and save. So we just click there, and you will find all the commits that you have done in the past with the user and the northbound interface that was used. If it was REST, it was showing here REST, or CLI, it was showing CLI, for example. So I'll just load the last rollback, and I can see that what are the configuration changes now. So if we roll back, the description will be deleted, the IP address as well, and we will go back to the previous one, because NSO saves this kind of information. So I just hit commit, and as simple as this, I can see here that now I'm back to the initial configurations, okay? So we have seen how to make these changes, make rollbacks, and now you tell me, okay, what if I have like 10 lines of configuration that I want to deploy? How can we do that? And for that, I'm going to use the templates. So in NSO 6, you can activate as well the legacy configuration editor. So if you are more used to the NSO 5 configuration editor, you can use it as well. So I will just use it just to show if it's possible. When we arrive into the configuration editor, you see the packages that you have, which are the NADs and the services that you have deployed, and then you have all these modules. To use the templates, you go to the module NCS devices, okay? And you see here that I have two templates, ACL default and set VTP domain off. My goal now is to deploy this one. So I will just go to one device. And inside this device, you will see that we have here the actions, okay? In NSO, in the new configuration editor, you just go and click actions on the top, and you will see all this bar that you had in the NSO 5. So I will click apply template. I will choose ACL default, run app action, and in the commit manager, I can see that as easy as this, I deployed this template, okay? Of course, it can be tweaked. You can use variables, so you change the IP addresses, you change the protocols, so it can be tweaked in every way. So as easy as this, I will just commit, and it will be deployed to the device. If you have a group of devices that you want to deploy these templates, it's possible as well. So we go back to the configuration editor, NCS devices, and I have created here a group that contains all the devices. Again, step by step in the workbook that you scanned, you have how to do this, how to create the groups, how to create the templates step by step, okay, with screenshots. So here we use the same logic. I just click in apply template. I choose the template that I want, in this case ACL defaults, run apply template, and you see that 4 devices were affected. If I go to the commit manager, native config, for example, you can see that all the devices inside the group were affected with this huge ACL, okay? So you can see that there is one device missing, iOS 0, because NSO already knows that this device already have the configuration, so doesn't need to deploy there. So we hit commit, and all the configurations are done. But these templates, they are not tied to just one device type. So, for example, if I come here, you remember that I had another template and another group. So I created a group with all the devices that I have in my infra, which are the iOS devices and iOS XR devices. You can see the members on the right. So you can see that we have here the other iOS XR devices as well. And if I want to deploy a template configuration to all my infra, I create a template for it. I have this one, set VTP domain off, run, and you can see that all the devices in my infrastructure, in this case they are just 8, they will all be configured with the VTP mode off and with the domain configuration, okay? So in the case you want to spread configurations about all a big group of devices, it can be done as well. They don't need to be only the same type of devices. So I just hit commit, and the configuration is deployed. So we can even go to the device and see that, if I type the command correctly. So templates are good, but they lack here on one consistency, which is, imagine someone just changed the domain name. How can you check that with the templates? You can do that if you create like compliance reports to do these checkings, but for this and for more advanced tasks, we created the services inside NSO. So let me trigger one service. Again, if we come back to the start, we have here the service manager. If I click on it, you will see that I have here a service created, okay? And I will create the service instance now. So I'll just say NTP 172.16, okay? And now I will configure my service with the inputs that I have defined in the YANG file, which is fully detailed in the workbook. And here I will just input my values. Via the YANG file, I protected the inputs. So if I want to just type here something that doesn't make sense, NSO will not allow me. If I want to restrict, for example, for networks only inside the 172.16, I can do that as well. But for now, I will just configure these ones. 44. When you see this, the min pool and max pool like this means that you have configured the default value inside the YANG. So if you don't change the value, it will be configured just like this. You can add the devices for this service. For example, I'll add these ones. You can do this add in a very different ways, like via RESTconf. You can add the devices to this specific service instance. And once I'm done, I go to the configuration editor, and I can apply this service. And now you tell me, okay, George, but until now I don't see any change. And now I'll show you where the change is. So we can now check sync and see if the configurations are still on the devices or not. So imagine someone goes to one of the devices, for example, iOS XR0, and deletes this NTP configuration by mistake, okay? So they just go here, peer, and then server, and they will just delete for the iOS XR0. They will commit, okay? If you go to the service manager and you do the check sync, it will return red. So it will say that this means that the configuration of the service is not in the device. So if you do the redeploy dry run, again, you will be able to see what is missing inside the device, which is the peer and the server configuration that we deleted. And if you just want to redeploy these changes, you just click redeploy, and it will be back onto the device. So if I go back to the iOS XR0, I go to the config, NTP, you see that the peer address is back here, okay? This is very good because if you deploy services like ACLs, etc., you don't want them to be deleted by mistake. So you want to be sure that they are there all the time. You can create checks to be sure that the configuration is there. And if it's not, you just hit redeploy, and the configurations will be sent to the device again. So we saw all these main features, and one of the things that I promised to show was the role-based access control. So what if inside your organization you have a lot of teams that access NSO, and you want to create some rules to prevent them to do actions like sync from, sync to only allow them to read configurations but don't make any change? How this can be done? So if you go to the configuration editor, by the way, every time you go back to the configuration editor, it stays in the last path that you were. So if you want to go back to the start, you just click on this small house, and you are in the start. And one of the modules that we have here, the AAA, is where you will configure all the users that you want to access NSO, okay? This is for local authentication. For external authentication, for example, if you are using TACACS, you don't need to specify them here, okay? So in this case, I've created the read user. And now I need to go to another module, which is the NACM, where we will define the rules. So we have a user, or a bunch of users, and what we need to do next, we need to create a group for these users, okay? So inside the groups, I have created the read group, which you see that holds the read user, but it could hold an entire team of users. And now what we will do, we will create rules and apply rules to this group, okay? And this will affect all the users. So if I go back to the NACM, I have created here a rule that says read rule with already 3 rules inside. You will see that you have CMD rule and rule. CMD rule are more for system commands, like, for example, logout. We have an internal message system inside NSO. So we can discard for now. What I want to focus is the actions inside NSO, like sync to, sync from, and only allow the user to read. So if I click on the sync from rule, you see that for now we did the action is a deny. We have here what we are denying. We are denying the execution. I will show you in a minute how you can get these access operations. But inside NSO, we have 5. The CRUD, which is create, read, update, and delete, and the execution for the actions, okay? And we need to specify a path and a context. So if you let the context in asterisk, means that this rule will be applied to all the contexts of the northbound. CLI, WebUI, RESTconf. Imagine you have a third party that needs to make configurations through NSO. You can give access only to RESTconf and limit the access via CLI and WebUI for that specific user, okay? That's why we have here the context. So how can we get these paths? So we go to one device, for example, iOS XR0, and this is a new thing in NSO 6. You will see here a widgets, okay, button. So if you click on it, you have here the X path, okay? In this X path is the path that you need to provide. So for example, if you want to prevent the user to make changes only regarding NTP, this is the path that you need to provide. You need to provide everything until NTP. If you want to prevent the user to make changes on just iOS XR0 device, this is what you need to provide. This is the path. If you want to prevent for everything besides that, this is the path that you need to provide. So You basically provide a path, and everything after that will be blocked because this is based on Yang, okay? So in this case, I have provided already a path, which is devices device and sync2. And how do I got that path? If you go back to the edit config, to the actions, you will see here the actions that you can do. So for example, the sync from, if you click on this information button, you can see that, for example, there is a small delay here. You can see that there is here the access execute, so you know that what you need to prevent is the exec. And here is the path that you can use. If you go back to the configurations, for example, iOS XR0, edit config, these type of configurations when you need to type something like the description, if you click on the information button, you see that the actions related are create, read, update, and delete, okay? So this is how you get the paths, and because my time is finishing, I will just log in into the user and verify if this is working. So this user can connect to the devices, do check syncs, but he's not allowed to do sync froms or sync tos, okay? So we are preventing some issues in the network, and if the user tries to make any config, you see that it's not possible to make any configuration. So I can even try to go to that interface that we have created, the loopback, and try to delete it, and you get here the message that says that it's not possible because there isn't an ACM rule preventing it. And all the edit boxes, they are just in the read mode. So this is what I had for today. I know it was probably too much. I'm coming back here to the slides. So for those who arrived late, you have here a workbook with everything that I couldn't cover from the scratch, like creating the services, creating the Yang model, how to create the XML equivalent for this service, device groups, templates, everything, step by step, with the screenshots as well. So thank you a lot for coming. I hope you have enjoyed. And if you have any question or you want to follow up on this topic or any other topic regarding NSO, let me know, and I will be more than happy to help you. So thank you.